everyone! Welcome back to another episode of your favorite English podcast. I'm Emma, and with me always is Mike.
Hello, everyone. We're so glad you could join us today. We've got a really fun topic lined up.
You know, Mike, have you ever found yourself, totally puzzled by those strange expressions people throw around? You know, like under the weather or cost an arm and a leg?
Oh, absolutely. It's like, what on earth does cost an arm and a leg even mean, right? And yet we all say it. So for anyone listening who's ever scratched their head over these expressions, today's episode is just for you.
Right. So today we're diving into the world of idioms. They're those quirky little phrases that, don't really mean what the words actually say, but they add such, personality? Yeah, personality in our language.
Exactly. By the end of this episode, you'll know a few of these common expressions that can make your English sound way more natural and, let's say, colorful.
Stick around because we're about to share some easy, everyday idioms that you'll actually want to use. Get comfy and let's dive in.
Key phrases.
So, first things first. What exactly is an idiom, right? To kick things off, let's get a clear idea of what idioms are and why they're so useful in everyday conversations. Idioms. Idioms are like these expressions where the meaning goes beyond the literal words. You know, the words don't directly spell out what it actually means. And that's what makes them so fun and maybe a little confusing at first. It's like they give our speech this extra flavor, you know? Idioms make conversations sound more authentic.
Exactly. Imagine hearing someone say, break the ice to mean, like, starting a conversation. It just sounds so much more natural and friendly.
Totally. So today we're going to be focusing on beginner-friendly idioms. These are the ones you'll hear a lot in everyday conversations. So, Mike, here is a question. What's the relevance of idioms?
Well, idioms bring such a unique vibe to English. They're like these little gems that make our language feel more alive and expressive.
Yeah.
So when you start using idioms, it's like adding a splash of color to your speech, making it feel more real and relatable. They're kind of like shortcuts to meaning. Instead of explaining that something was super easy, you just say, it was a piece of cake. Simple, but it adds so much personality.
Right. And for anyone learning English, knowing idioms helps you fit in with everyday conversations. It's a big step toward sounding natural.
And even better, when you understand idioms, you're less likely to get confused. Like if someone says, I got cold feet, you know they're not talking about their toes being cold. They're just nervous.
Exactly.
Idioms basically help you understand and connect with people, and that's why we're so excited to dive into some of the most common ones today.
Beginner-friendly idioms. Idioms in daily life.
All right, let's dive into some everyday idioms. First up, break the ice. This one is all about starting a conversation when things feel a bit, awkward.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you're at a party with new people and someone cracks a joke or brings up an interesting topic to break the ice. It just makes things more comfortable.
Right. It's like a little social trick to get everyone talking.
Next, we have spill the beans, which means to reveal a secret. Ever had that moment when you accidentally blurt out something you weren't supposed to?
Oh, yes. Like when someone's planning a surprise and oops, you spill the beans without meaning to. It's so easy to do.
Totally. And then there's hit the sack, which simply means to go to bed.
It's a funny way of putting it, but I like it. After a long day, you can say, I'm so tired, I need to hit the sack. It just sounds cozy.
Definitely. Then we have piece of cake for something that's really easy.
Like if you breeze through an assignment, you can say, that was a piece of cake. It's a nice way to say something wasn't challenging at all.
Absolutely. Now, under the weather is a good one. It means you're feeling a bit sick.
Yeah. Instead of saying, I'm sick, you just say, I'm feeling a bit under the weather. It's almost gentler, don't you think?
For sure. And speaking of interesting ways to say things, there's cost an arm and a leg. It's a way of saying something was really expensive.
Exactly. Like, that concert ticket cost an arm and a leg. It's a bit dramatic, but it gets the point across.
It does. Then there's get cold feet, which is all about feeling nervous before something big.
Yes. Like if you're about to give a speech and suddenly feel like backing out, you could say, I'm getting cold feet. It's that last-minute nervousness.
Exactly. And then there's let the cat out of the bag, which is a colorful way to say you revealed a secret by accident.
It's like a twist on spilling the beans, but more visual, don't you think? Like once the cat's out, you can't put it back.
Absolutely. Now, bite the bullet means facing a difficult situation with bravery.
Yeah, it's like when you have to do something tough, and you just say, all right, time to bite the bullet and go for it. It's about pushing through.
Last but not least, we have burn the midnight oil, which means to stay up late working.
I've done that so many times. When you're cramming for an exam or finishing a project, it's like you're burning the midnight oil to get it done.
Exactly. It's a vivid way to describe those late nights.
Now that we've covered the key phrases, we're thrilled to introduce a special guest to the show.
Yes. Joining us today is Jane, a language expert and idiom enthusiast who has a real knack for bringing idioms to life in a way that's easy and fun.
We're so excited to have you with us, Jane. Thanks for being here.
So, Jane, why do you think idioms are such an important part of language learning? What makes them stand out in communication?
I think idioms bring a special charm to language. They help people go beyond basic communication and add a bit of flair and authenticity to their conversations.
That's such a good point. It's like idioms give you this extra way to express yourself, almost like adding personality to your words.
Exactly. Once you start using them, you realize they're not just phrases. They're like little pieces of culture that bring people closer.
And that's the beauty of idioms. They help you feel connected to the language on a deeper level, and people instantly recognize that authenticity.
All right, everyone. To help you see how these idioms work in real life, let's listen to a short conversation between two friends planning their weekend. Keep an ear out for the idioms we talked about today.
So, are you excited about the concert on Saturday? I heard the tickets cost an arm and a leg.
Yeah, but it'll be worth it. I can't wait. I'm definitely not getting cold feet this time.
Oh, I get it. Well, maybe we can hit the sack early Friday night so we're not too tired.
Good idea. I'd hate to be under the weather and miss out. Plus, I think we'll need all our energy for the weekend.
Absolutely. And hey, don't spill the beans to anyone else about our plan to grab those front row spots.
My lips are sealed. But you know, getting those seats was a piece of cake compared to finding a decent place to eat nearby.
Seriously, but we'll figure it out, even if we have to bite the bullet and go with whatever we find last minute.
Agreed. We'll just go with the flow and make the most of it.
So, that was a fun little exchange, right?
Right. You can really feel how they add color and personality to even the simplest plans.
What I love about idioms is that they carry so much meaning with just a few words. Saying those concert tickets cost an arm and a leg, it immediately paints a picture of just how pricey they were.
And phrases like, don't spill the beans, gave a playful vibe to the conversation, making it feel more relaxed and friendly.
And that's a key point. Idioms aren't just words. They're a way to connect. They add personality, humor, and sometimes even suspense to what you're saying.
Well said. It's also worth noting that understanding idioms help learners feel more at home in English conversations. You hear them everywhere, in movies, in songs, and in everyday chat.
Exactly. And for anyone learning English, using idioms makes your speech sound more natural. It's like you're in on the cultural side of the language.
So true. Hopefully, hearing them in action here gives our listeners the confidence to try out a few idioms themselves. All right. So now that we've seen these idioms in action, let's talk about some practical ways to start using them in your own conversations. We'll go through a few tips that can make learning idioms easy and fun.
Tips to master daily idioms.
Perfect. Tip number 1. Try practicing one idiom each day. So let's say you choose break the ice today. Find a way to use it in a sentence, even if it's just with yourself. It's a great way to get comfortable with new idioms.
I love that approach. By focusing on one idiom at a time, you're not overwhelming yourself. You're giving yourself the chance to get familiar with its meaning and when to use it without pressure.
Exactly. Now, tip number 2. Pay attention to context. Think about situations where an idiom would fit naturally. For instance, if you're about to go to bed, you might say, I'm ready to hit the sack. Or if you're meeting someone new, you could think of a way to break the ice. It's all about using idioms when they actually make sense.
And that's so important. The more you understand the context, the more natural it feels. It's also a great way to avoid mistakes and ensure you're using the idiom correctly.
Definitely.
Exactly.
And that brings us to tip 3, listening. Whether it's watching a show, listening to a podcast, or chatting with friends, pay attention to how native speakers use idioms. Hearing them in real situations is one of the best ways to learn.
Yes, it's amazing how much you pick up just by observing. You'll start recognizing idioms more often, and it'll reinforce how and when they're used.
Tip 4. Keep an idiom journal. Every time you hear a new idiom, write it down along with an example of how it was used. It's like creating your own personalized dictionary.
Absolutely. Having a journal gives you something to look back on, and every once in a while, review it and challenge yourself to use a few of the idioms you've noted.
And finally, remember to have fun with it. Learning idioms is a gradual process, so don't stress. The goal is to enjoy the journey, and before you know it, you'll start using these expressions naturally.
Tip of the day.
All right, listeners, today's tip of the day is listening.
Exactly. By listening closely, you'll start to pick up the natural rhythm and context of each idiom. Notice when and how they pop up in conversations, shows, or even podcasts like this one.
Yes, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Just let yourself absorb how idioms are used. Over time, you'll start to recognize them and feel more comfortable using them yourself.
And the best part? The more you listen, the easier it becomes to remember idioms without overthinking. It's like building a natural familiarity with them.
Plus, you might even start enjoying the process. Listening becomes a fun way to learn. It's like collecting little language gems as you go.
Absolutely. Remember, learning idioms is a journey. Each time you listen and recognize an idiom, it brings you one step closer to sounding more fluent.
So try this today. Pick a show, podcast, or conversation and really tune in to how idioms are used. You'll be amazed at how much you pick up. All right, so let's recap some of the idioms we covered today and why they're worth adding to your language toolkit.
We went through some fun ones like break the ice, hit the sack, and spill the beans. All everyday expressions that make conversations feel more natural and engaging.
Absolutely. And remember, using idioms helps you connect with people in a way that goes beyond basic words. They add color, personality, and authenticity to your speech.
So, take these idioms, keep listening for them in real-life situations, and try using them yourself. You'll find that they're not just phrases, they're shortcuts to sounding fluent.
And a big thank you to our guest for sharing such wonderful insights on using idioms to make English feel more authentic. It was a pleasure having you with us.
And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with friends who might find it helpful. And before you go, give this video a thumbs up.
Most importantly, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so that you don't miss out on upcoming episodes. And let us know in the comments which idiom you're most excited to try. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Keep listening, keep practicing, and we'll catch you in the next episode.